This is my accidental fiancée, the woman I rescued from poverty." Josh Vincent's voice dripped with pride as he raised his champagne glass above the Manhattan penthouse crowd. "Found her organizing food drives in Brooklyn, covered in dust, no makeup, absolutely precious in her simplicity." The wealthy guests laughed on cue, their designer dresses and tailored suits glittering under crystal chandeliers. They were celebrating Josh's promotion to Chief Operating Officer of Sterling Dynamics, but the real entertainment was watching him parade his charity case romance like a trophy won from the gutters. Layla Peter stood beside him in her modest dress, enduring their condescension with unreadable eyes. She'd been silent all evening, playing the role of grateful nobody perfectly. Then the penthouse doors opened. Victor Sterling entered with his wife Elena, and every conversation died mid-sentence. Victor Sterling never attended company parties. His presence wasn't just unusual, it was impossible. But what shattered Josh's perfect celebration wasn't Victor's arrival. It was what happened next. Victor and Elena crossed the ballroom, ignoring every executive desperate for their attention, and walked straight to Layla. Victor opened his arms and embraced her like family. Eleanor's hands trembled as she held Layla's face. "We've been waiting for you to come home," Eleanor whispered, loud enough for nearby guests to hear, her voice breaking with years of longing. Josh felt his confidence drain like water through broken glass. Around him, whispers erupted. A woman near the bar gasped, diamond earrings catching light as her hand flew to her mouth. "That's Elena Morrison Sterling," she hissed, "which means, oh God, which means—" The Morrison name spread through the crowd like wildfire. Josh watched faces shift from confusion to shock to something resembling fear. Layla had told him she came from nothing, no family, no connections, no power. She'd lied about everything. Victor pulled back, studying Layla with eyes holding decades of secrets. "The woman who saved my life," he said softly. "You look tired. This life doesn't suit you." Elena touched Layla's face with reverent fingers. "Come back to us, please. You don't have to hide anymore." Layla's expression remained perfectly controlled, but something flickered in her eyes. Something dangerous that made Josh's stomach clench with instinct he didn't want to name. "Excuse me," Layla said quietly, her voice carrying command Josh had never heard before. "I need air." She walked toward the balcony, and every person in that room watched her move like watching royalty exit a throne. Josh followed on, legs moving before his brain could catch up, leaving behind a party transforming into feeding frenzy speculation. On the balcony, Manhattan's skyline glittered like the lies Josh had built his life on. Layla stood at the railing, her back straight, shoulders set for battle. "Who are they to you?" Josh demanded, his voice harder than he'd ever used with her. Layla turned slowly. The woman facing him was not the grateful, modest, manageable person he'd spent 6 months molding. Her eyes were ice. Her smile was a blade. "People who know exactly who I am," she said. "Unlike you, Josh, you never bothered to know who I really was. You only cared about who you could make me appear to be." "What the hell does that mean?" "It means you've been playing a game you never understood. Tonight the game ends." She walked past him, her shoulder brushing his, and Josh felt genuine fear for the first time in years. She walked past him, her shoulder brushing his, and Josh felt genuine fear for the first time in years. When he turned to follow, she was gone. Vanished. Victor and Elena had disappeared with her. His guests stared at him with expressions ranging from pity to barely concealed delight at his humiliation. Josh's phone buzzed. His assistant, "Emergency, call immediately." He fled his own celebration, driving through Manhattan in panicked confusion. His mind replayed Victor's words. "The woman who saved my life." The Morrison name triggered memories, a scandal years ago, a trial, a fortune destroyed by betrayal. He arrived at his real apartment, The one Layla never saw, the one he shared with Sienna Hartwell during his double life, his carefully maintained separate existence that never intersected, until tonight. Josh opened the door and found Sienna white-faced with fury, holding her phone like a weapon. "Who is Layla Peter?" Sienna's deadly calm was worse than screaming. "My sister called from your party, where you introduced another woman as your fiancée. Explain." Josh's mouth opened, but no words came. Before he could construct a lie big enough, he saw what sat on the coffee table. A manila folder. Thick, professional, ominous. Inside were photographs, crystal clear, professionally shot. Josh and Sienna at restaurants, entering hotels, kissing in parking garages. Every moment of their 4-year relationship documented like evidence. Bank statements showing stolen company money, emails he'd deleted, somehow recovered, text messages he'd believed secure, receipts for the second apartment, second car, second life funded by embezzlement. Everything, every secret, every crime. Underneath, elegant handwriting, "I know everything. And now, everyone will too. Your closet is empty, your accounts frozen, your phone disconnected, but I left you something, the truth you thought you'd buried. Sleep well, Josh. Tomorrow, your real education begins." Sienna snatched the folder, her face transforming from anger to horror to disgust, so profound it made Josh physically ill. "You've been stealing," she whispered, "living a double life. With me, with her. How long?" 4 years. Josh heard himself say, 4 years with you, 6 months with her. Sienna's hand cracked across his face so hard his ears rang. Get out of my home, get out of my life." "Sienna, wait. Get out!" Josh stumbled backward, grabbed his keys, fled into the hallway with Sienna's screams following him like ghosts. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. He answered. "Hello, Josh?" Layla's voice was calm, almost gentle. "You found my gift, the folder, the evidence, the truth." "You destroyed my life," Josh breathed. "No," Layla said softly. "I revealed your life. There's a difference. Tomorrow morning, 9 o'clock, Sterling Dynamics main conference room. Don't be late, your education begins." The line went dead. Josh stood in that hallway, homeless, exposed, terrified, alone. The man who'd spent years manipulating everyone had just discovered he'd been the one manipulated all along. And somewhere in Manhattan, Layla Peter, or whoever she really was watching his entire world burn with satisfaction earned through 6 months of perfect performance. Chapter 2. The Hidden Empire. The Sterling Dynamics conference room was built to intimidate. Floor-to-ceiling windows overlooked Manhattan. The table seated 30. The chairs cost more than most monthly rents. Josh had been here hundreds of times feeling powerful. This morning, he felt like prey. He'd spent the night in his car, unable to go home because both apartments existed through company arrangements now revoked. Credit cards declined at hotels. Bank accounts showing zero. Everything vanished like smoke. The conference room wasn't empty. It was packed with Sterling Dynamics board, corporate lawyers lining walls, security at both doors. And at the head of the table where Victor Sterling usually sat, Layla. But not the Layla he knew. This woman wore a tailored suit costing more than Josh's car, hairstyled professionally, makeup subtle but perfect. She sat with posture born to command rooms exactly like this. She looked like power itself. "Josh Vincent," Victor said from Layla's right. "Thank you for joining us. Please sit." Josh sat facing the entire board, feeling like a defendant at trial, which was exactly what this was. Victor stood buttoning his suit jacket. "Let me introduce someone properly. This is Layla Petra Morrison, majority shareholder of Sterling Dynamics and heir to the Morrison fortune. She's been operating under an alias for personal reasons that are about to become clear." Morrison. The name hit Josh like a physical blow. He remembered now, the trial dominating headlines 8 years ago, the empire torn apart by fraud, the daughter who testified against her own father. "I see recognition," Layla said, her voice carrying effortlessly. "Good. That saves time. Yes, I'm Marcus Morrison's daughter. Yes, I sent my father to prison for fraud and destroying countless lives. And yes, I disappeared afterward, changed my name, spent 8 years living as someone ordinary while rebuilding my family's fortune into something that actually helped people. A screen descended. Images appeared. Documents, photographs, financial records showing Josh meeting with someone outside a restaurant. The man was older, silver-haired, with eyes like winter frost. "That's my father," Layla said, eyes locked on Josh. "Meeting with you 4 days before you accidentally showed up at my workplace. Want to explain, or should I play the recording?" "Recording?" Josh's voice came out as a rasp. Layla pressed a button. Josh's voice filled the room, and he wanted to die. "So you want me to seduce your daughter, gain her trust, isolate her, then expose her identity publicly? That's the plan?" Marcus Morrison's voice, smooth as poison. "Not just expose her, Josh. Destroy her reputation, make her look unstable, make people question whether she told the truth 8 years ago, plant doubt. By the time you're done, she'll be so discredited that when I challenge the conviction with new evidence, people will believe me. And I get what in return? Everything you need. Money for your lifestyle with Sienna, a promotion I'll arrange, protection when your embezzlement surfaces, and when Layla is destroyed, you walk away clean and rich." Josh's voice, "How do I know you'll keep your word?" Marcus's cruel laugh, "Because you're drowning, Josh. Your double life costs more than you make. Your theft will be discovered within 6 months. You can drown alone, or let me throw you a rope." A pause. Then Josh's voice, smaller, desperate. "I'll do it." The recording stopped. Silence was absolute. Josh looked around the table and saw his career, reputation, entire future dying on every board member's face. "You were supposed to make me trust you," Layla said quietly, "then betray that trust publicly. Make me look desperate, unstable, make people question my testimony against my father. That was the plan." Josh couldn't speak, couldn't move, could only sit while everything collapsed. "The problem with your plan," Layla continued, standing and moving around the table toward him, "is that I knew from day one. My father is predictable. I knew he'd send someone. When you walked into my community center, so obviously fake, I knew it was you." She stopped directly in front of Josh. "I let you in, played the role you expected, the grateful, lonely woman touched by your attention. I let you think you were manipulating me while I documented every moment of your actual life. Sienna, the embezzlement, everything." "Why?" Josh managed. "Because I needed proof of my father's continuing criminal behavior, evidence of conspiracy, and because you needed to understand something fundamental about women you've spent your life using. We're not your props, not your charity cases, and when you treat us like nothing, you discover we're everything you should have feared." She addressed the board again. "Josh Vincent has been stealing from Sterling Dynamics for 18 months. He's been living a double life, engaged to 2 women simultaneously, using company resources to fund both. He willingly participated in conspiracy with a convicted felon." Catherine, an older board member, spoke. "What do you recommend?" "Terminate him immediately," Layla said. "Freeze assets, file charges." "Wait!" Josh surged up. "I'll testify against your father. I'll tell everything." "You will," Layla agreed, "but not to avoid consequences. You'll testify because if you don't, my father will ensure you disappear. You were never his partner. You were his tool. Tools get discarded." Ice crawled down Josh's spine. "What?" "My father put a price on your failure," Layla said matter-of-factly. "If you succeeded, you'd be rewarded. If you failed, he'd make sure you vanished before testifying. You thought you were the predator. You were always prey." Victor stood. "Josh Vincent, you're terminated effective immediately. Security will escort you. You'll be served with complaints this afternoon. Hire an attorney. A good one." "Please," Josh said, hating how his voice broke. "I'll lose everything." "You already lost everything," Layla said. "The moment you decided other people's lives meant nothing, but I'm offering something my father never would. A choice." She handed him an envelope. 3 conditions. Meet them all, and I'll ensure you survive what's coming." refuse, and face both the legal system and my father's people alone. Josh opened it with shaking hands. 3 typed paragraphs. He read the first and felt his legs go weak. Live on the streets? For a year, with $50 a week? The women at my shelter receive the same, Layla said. The women you called charity cases. You're going to experience their reality. Every day, 1 full year. Josh read the second, hands shaking. Testify against your father wearing a wire? He'll kill me. Probably, Layla agreed. Unless you're careful. But you're testifying anyway, either for prosecution or as a corpse. This way, you might live. The third made his stomach turn. Face every woman I've hurt. Record conversations. Air them publicly. Sienna deserves to tell her story, Layla said. So does Melissa, your secretary you harassed until she quit. So does every woman whose life you damaged. You listen to all of them. You don't defend yourself. You don't explain. You just listen. This will destroy my life. Your life was destroyed when you decided to participate in conspiracies against innocent people, Layla said. I'm offering the chance to build a new one. My father won't offer anything except a shallow grave. The room was silent. Every person watching Josh realized he had no moves left. How long to decide? Josh asked barely audibly. Now, Layla said. Right now, in front of witnesses. Accept my conditions or walk out those doors alone. Josh thought about apartments that weren't his anymore. His car about to be repossessed. Bank accounts at zero. Reputation in ashes. Career over. Sienna screaming at him. The recording of his own voice agreeing to destroy an innocent woman for money. He thought about Marcus Morrison, who'd used him like a disposable weapon. He looked at Layla, standing like justice personified, offering something he didn't deserve but desperately needed. I accept, Josh whispered. All 3 conditions. I accept. Layla nodded once. Security will provide $50, basic clothing and an ankle monitor. You start tonight. My people watch. If you remove the monitor, if you seek help from family or friends, if you break any part of these conditions, the deal is void. Understood? Understood. Then get out of my building, Layla said, voice carrying no heat, just finality. Your year starts now. Guards moved forward. Josh stood on legs barely holding him, looking one last time at the woman he'd thought he was manipulating. Why? He asked. Why give me any chance? Layla's expression didn't change, but something flickered in her eyes. Pain or memory. Because someone once gave me a chance when I deserved nothing, she said quietly. That chance saved my life. I believe people can change, Josh, but change requires suffering, real suffering. You're about to learn exactly how much. Guards escorted Josh out. Doors closed behind him with a sound like a vault ceiling. And in that pristine room, surrounded by powerful people who'd watched a man's existence dissolve, Layla sat down heavily and allowed herself, for just a moment, to feel the weight of what she'd done. Victor touched her shoulder. Are you certain about this approach? No, Layla admitted, but my father turned his pain into weapons that destroyed people. If I do the same, he wins. Even from prison he wins. I have to believe there's another way. Elena squeezed her hand. Your mother would be proud. Layla closed her eyes against sudden tears. Her mother who'd tried to leave Marcus and been destroyed for it. Her mother who died knowing her daughter would face her father's rage alone. I hope so, Layla whispered. God, I hope so. Outside Sterling Dynamics, Josh stood on the sidewalk in cheap clothes, holding $50, wearing an ankle monitor that made him prisoner in his own city. He looked up at the gleaming tower, at the life he'd lost, at the future stolen by his own choices. For the first time in his adult life, Josh Vincent understood exactly what it felt like to have nothing. His year of education had begun. Chapter 3. The Puppet Master. 6 months before Josh walked into Layla's community center, Marcus Morrison sat in leather costing more than most people earned in a year, swirling whiskey in crystal that had been a senator's gift. Prison had aged him, grey at temples, lines around eyes, but hadn't diminished the cold intelligence radiating like winter frost. Across from him sat Josh Vincent, sweating despite air conditioning, trying to hide desperation and failing completely. "You're drowning," Marcus said without pleasantries. "Your lifestyle requires twice what you make. You've been stealing from Sterling Dynamics to cover costs of maintaining two separate lives. Very creative. Very stupid." Josh's throat was dry. "How do you know that?" "Because I make it my business to know things, especially about people working at companies I used to own. Companies stolen from me by traitors." Bitterness in Marcus's voice could have corroded steel. "I don't understand what this has to do with me," Josh said carefully. "My daughter works at Sterling Dynamics," Marcus said, leaning forward, "except she doesn't use Morrison anymore. Calls herself Layla Peter, lives in Brooklyn like common nobody, volunteers at community centers, pretends she's ordinary, but she's sitting on the Morrison fortune controlling my life's work, and she did it by lying, by inventing crimes, by destroying her own father to steal his empire." Josh had heard rumors about the Morrison trial but never paid attention. Rich people eating each other alive wasn't his concern. His concern was survival. "She stole everything," Marcus continued, voice dropping to something dangerous. "My company, my reputation, my freedom. 8 years rotting in a cell while she played victim and society applauded. But here's what society doesn't know. Layla Morrison is a liar. She fabricated evidence, manipulated investigators, destroyed me because I wouldn't let her sell the company to my competitors." "Why tell me this?" Josh asked. Marcus smiled like a shark smelling blood. "Because you're going to help me get revenge, seduce my daughter, gain her trust, make her care, then destroy her publicly. Make her look unstable, make people question her judgment, make them wonder if she lied about me." Josh's pulse quickened. This was insane. "I can't do that." "You can and will," Marcus said calmly. "Because I'm offering everything you need. Money for your double life. A promotion I'll arrange. Protection when your embezzlement surfaces, and it will, within 6 months. When Layla is destroyed, when her credibility is shattered, you walk away clean, rich, untouchable." Everything Josh needed, everything he'd been scrambling to maintain, one conversation and all problems vanished. "How would this work?" Josh heard himself ask. "Layla volunteers at a Brooklyn community center," Marcus said, sliding a folder across. 3 times weekly. You'll manufacture an introduction, show interest in charity, be charming, be patient. She's lonely, been hiding 8 years. She wants connection even though she's terrified. That's her weakness. Exploit it." Josh opened the folder. Inside were photographs of a woman who looked nothing like expected. Pretty in an understated way, dressed simply, hair pulled back, no expensive jewelry. She looked like exactly the kind Josh had spent his life overlooking. "You want me to date her?" "I want you to make her fall in love," Marcus corrected. "Make her trust you completely. Then, when I tell you, reveal who she really is, what she's been hiding, and paint her as unstable and manipulative. Make it look like she's been deceiving everyone. Plant doubt about her testimony. By the time you're done, public opinion will have shifted enough that I can challenge my conviction." "What if she doesn't fall for it?" "Then you're not as good as I think," Marcus said. "But I don't think that'll be a problem. You've been lying to 2 women simultaneously for 4 years. Stealing without getting caught. You're exactly the kind of charming sociopath I need." Josh should have walked away, should have refused, should have recognized Marcus was using him as disposable ammunition. But desperation makes people stupid. Fear makes people cruel. The promise of safety, money, everything Josh needed to maintain his carefully constructed lies was too powerful to resist. "If I do this," Josh said slowly, "I need guarantees." "You need to understand something first," Marcus replied, voice going cold. "You're not my partner. You're my tool. You'll do exactly what I tell you, when I tell you, how I tell you. If you succeed, you'll be rewarded. If you fail, if Layla discovers what you're doing, if you expose my involvement, you'll disappear. Permanently. Understand?" Josh understood. He was making a deal with someone who'd destroyed countless lives and felt no remorse. Someone who'd spent 8 years in prison and emerged more dangerous. He should have run. Instead, I understand. Marcus smiled that terrible smile. Good. Start next week. I'll deposit money in an offshore account. Use it carefully. And Josh, don't disappoint me. People who disappoint me don't get second chances. Now, 6 months later, Josh stood on Manhattan's sidewalk wearing an ankle monitor, holding $50, realizing Marcus's warning had been prophecy. He'd failed. Marcus didn't give second chances. His phone buzzed. Unknown number. Josh answered with shaking hands. Hello, Josh. Marcus's voice was silk over razor blades. I've been watching your performance this morning. Very dramatic, very public, very disappointing. I didn't know she knew, Josh said desperately. She played me from the beginning. Of course she did, Marcus said, almost amused. She's my daughter. The problem is, you're now a liability. You can testify against me, connect me to conspiracy. That means you're no longer useful. You're dangerous. Josh's blood turned to ice. You said you'd protect me. I said I'd protect you if you succeeded, Marcus corrected. You failed spectacularly. Now you've accepted my daughter's ridiculous conditions, which means you'll spend the next year homeless while she parades you around as an example of her mercy. How touching, how predictable. What are you going to do? What I should have done from the beginning, Marcus said. Remove you from the equation. Garrett Kane is very good at making problems disappear. You'll see him soon. When you do, you'll have a choice. Die quietly or die screaming. Either way, you won't be testifying. The line went dead. Josh stood frozen on the sidewalk, tourists and business people flowing around him. He looked down at the ankle monitor, at the $50, at cheap clothes marking him as nobody. He'd played games with forces he hadn't understood, manipulated people stronger than him, made deals with a monster and believed he could walk away unscathed. Now that monster was coming to collect. Josh started walking, no destination, just moving because standing still felt like death. He'd accepted Layla's conditions, but hadn't understood what they really meant. She wasn't trying to redeem him. She was protecting him. The ankle monitor wasn't just tracking, it was proof of life. Constant monitoring, meaning if something happened, people would know. For the first time since that morning's humiliation, Josh understood Layla hadn't destroyed him out of cruelty. She'd been trying to save his life, and he'd been too blind to see it until now, when Marcus Morrison's enforcer was already hunting him, and the year ahead wasn't just about suffering, it was about survival. Chapter 4. The Brutal Conditions. Josh's first destination was a Bronx men's shelter, guided by an address security had given him. The building looked like it had survived disasters and barely bothered repairing damage. Paint peeled from graffiti-covered walls. The front door hung crooked. Inside smelled like desperation, sweat, and industrial cleaner that couldn't quite cover underlying scent of too many unwashed bodies. A man at the front desk, older with grey stubble and eyes that had seen everything, looked up when Josh entered. First time? The man asked, not unkindly. Josh nodded, unable to speak past throat tightness. Name's Raymond. I run intake. You look shell-shocked. Normal. Everyone who walks through that door first time has the same expression, like they can't believe this is their life now. Raymond pulled out a clipboard. Name. Josh Vincent. Raymond's pen stopped. He looked up sharply. The Josh Vincent. From Sterling Dynamics who got caught stealing and living double life. That's all over news. You're him? Josh wanted to lie. What was the point? Yes. Well? Raymond set down his clipboard. This'll be interesting. Lots of people here know about you now, know what you did, know about that woman you tried to destroy. Some will have opinions, strong ones. I just need a place to sleep. We've got beds, but you're not guaranteed one every night. Shelter fills up fast. First come, first served. Maximum 3 nights weekly. Other nights, you're on your own. Meals at 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. Miss them, you don't eat here. No drugs, alcohol, weapons, violence. Break any rule, you're banned permanently. Understood? Josh nodded. Check-in is 5 p.m. We lock doors at 9. Not here by 9. You're sleeping somewhere else. Questions? The ankle monitor. Will that be a problem? Seen plenty. Long as you're not breaking laws, not our concern. Raymond studied Josh. Look, I'll give you advice you probably won't take but should. Whatever brought you here, that person is gone. You're starting over whether you like it or not. People here, some are good people who got unlucky, some are garbage who deserve what they got. You'll learn fast which is which, and you'll learn even faster what you are. Josh spent his first night lying awake in a bed smelling like strangers, listening to symphony of snoring, coughing, sleep talk from dozens of men crammed into a room never meant to hold this many. The sheets were clean but thin. The mattress had a spring digging into his lower back. Fluorescent lights never fully turned off, just dimmed to sickly yellow, making everything look diseased. This was his life now, for 1 full year. Morning came early. Shelter breakfast was oatmeal, coffee tasting like burned cardboard, and toast that was more air than bread. He ate anyway because his stomach was knotted with hunger, and his $50 had to last 7 days. After breakfast, he walked. Just walked through neighborhoods he'd driven past his entire life without truly seeing. He saw poverty's reality in ways he'd never allowed himself to witness. People sleeping in doorways, families living in cars, children whose clothes didn't fit because they'd outgrown them, and there was no money for new ones. By afternoon, Josh was exhausted and hungry again. His 50 had shrunk to 40 after buying a cheap sandwich. $7 remained for 6 more days. The math was brutal and unforgiving. He found a library and sat in warmth, watching people with nowhere else to go but somewhere with heat and bathrooms and the pretense they belonged. An older black woman sat across from him, reading a romance novel, her belongings in a cart beside her chair. She caught him staring. "First week? First day," Josh admitted. "Gets easier. Doesn't get good, but gets easier." She extended a hand. "Name's Dorothy." "Josh, you're that man from News, the one who tried to hurt that Morrison woman." Not a question. Josh's face burned. "Yes." Dorothy considered him. "My granddaughter worked at Sterling Dynamics, accounting. She always said that woman, Layla Peter, was kind. Remembered everyone's names, asked about families, sent flowers when someone's mom died. Then you came along. My granddaughter said the whole place changed, said you were poison." "I was," Josh said, words ash in his mouth. "So why'd she let you live?" Dorothy asked. "If I had her power, I'd have crushed you flat. But she gave you conditions instead. Why?" "I don't know." "Sure you do," Dorothy said. "You just don't want to admit it. She gave you what nobody ever gave people like me, a genuine second chance, not charity, not pity, a chance to become something different through hard work and suffering. Most folks with power don't believe people can change. She does. Question is, are you going to prove her right or wrong?" Josh had no answer. Dorothy went back to her book, and Josh sat in the library until closing, trying not to think about having nowhere to go, that the shelter wouldn't open for check-in for 3 more hours, that his feet hurt and stomach ached, and he'd never been so tired. He learned that night about hierarchy of sleeping spots outside. Doorways belonged to people who'd been on streets for years and would fight to defend territory. Subway platforms were dangerous, full of people who'd hurt you for pleasure. Parks were cold but relatively safe if you found other people to sleep near. Safety in numbers. Josh found a spot under a bridge with 6 others who'd built a small community of cardboard and tarps. They didn't speak to him, didn't acknowledge him, just let him exist on the edge, because that's how it worked. You earned your place through time and respect, neither of which Josh had yet. He tried to sleep on concrete leaching cold through his thin jacket. Failed. Instead lay awake watching his breath mist in November air, listening to the city that never noticed him, thinking about beds he used to own, apartments he used to inhabit, the life he used to have. His phone buzzed. The cheap burner shelter had given him. Unknown number. Josh answered anyway. "How's your first day, Josh?" Layla's voice was calm, professional without warmth or coldness. "Why are you calling?" "Because you need to understand something," Layla said. "My father is hunting you. His people are looking in shelters, on streets, anywhere desperate men hide. Your ankle monitor broadcasts location to my security team, which means we can protect you, but only if you follow conditions exactly. Why do you care if I live or die? Silence. Then, because I refuse to let my father turn me into him, he destroys people. I save them, even when they don't deserve it, even when it hurts. That's how I stay human instead of becoming the monster he wanted me to be. I'm not worth saving. That's for you to discover, Layla replied. My job is to give you the chance. Your job is deciding what you do with it. Sleep well, Josh, or as well as you can under that bridge. She hung up before he could ask how she knew where he was sleeping. The second week was worse. Josh's body, accustomed to soft mattresses and regular meals, rebelled against constant hunger and insufficient rest. He lost weight, developed a cough. His hands cracked and bled from cold. He tried day labor, showing up at 6 a.m. with dozens of desperate men hoping for work. Sometimes he got picked, sometimes not. When he worked, he earned enough for food that day. When he didn't, he rationed what little remained. The work was brutal, moving furniture up 5-floor walk-ups, cleaning construction sites, hauling trash. His muscles screamed. Blisters formed, burst, formed again. He'd never understood physical labor, had always dismissed it as something for people lacking intelligence or ambition. Now he understood it was something for people with no other choice, and their strength, physical and mental, exceeded anything he'd ever possessed. One afternoon, hauling debris from a renovation, Josh overheard the contractor talking to his foreman. That new guy, the one with fancy talking, he's that scumbag from News, the contractor said. The one who tried to destroy that rich woman. Should we fire him? The foreman asked. The contractor considered. Nah, he's working hard. Doesn't complain. If he's willing to do the work, I don't care what he did before. Everyone deserves a chance to earn an honest dollar. Josh almost wept at that small kindness, that grudging acceptance that he was worth the space he occupied for as long as he earned it. But not everyone was kind. On a freezing Tuesday night, sleeping in a doorway, someone kicked him awake. "Get up, rich boy," a voice snarled. Josh opened his eyes to find 3 young men standing over him, angry, high on something making their eyes wild. "You're that guy from News," one said. "The one who had everything and wanted more. My sister lost her job when Sterling Dynamics downsized, but you were stealing money while people like her got laid off." "I'm sorry," Josh said, knowing it was inadequate. They beat him. Not badly enough for hospital, but thoroughly enough that Josh spent the next hour vomiting from pain and fear. They took his remaining money, $14 representing 2 days of survival. When they left, Josh lay in that doorway tasting blood and understanding, truly understanding that his old life was gone completely. Whatever happened next, whoever he became, it would be built from nothing on a foundation of suffering he'd never imagined existed. His ankle monitor alerted Layla's security. They found him an hour later, still lying there, still bleeding from a cut above his eye. The security guard, a woman named Diana with kind eyes, helped him sit up. "Hospital?" "No," Josh managed. "Just give me a minute." "Your first beating," Diana said, not unkindly. "There'll be more. People see you as a symbol. Sometimes they'll help because everyone deserves help. Sometimes they'll hurt because everyone deserves punishment. You'll learn to tell which is coming." "Does it get easier?" "No," Diana said honestly, "but you get stronger or you break. Those are the only 2 options." She handed him a first aid kit and left. Josh cleaned wounds in a gas station bathroom, watching his reflection in a cracked mirror. The man staring back looked nothing like the Josh Vincent who'd stood in a penthouse introducing his accidental fiancée to people he'd believed were beneath him. This man was bruised, bloody, beaten down by reality. But this man was still alive. And for reasons Josh couldn't articulate, that mattered more than expected. Chapter 5. Broken and Hunted. 3 months into his year, Josh discovered poverty's worst part wasn't hunger, or cold, or exhaustion. It was invisibility. Walking past thousands daily who looked through you like vapor. Being nothing to everyone. Mattering to no one. He was moving boxes at a day labor site when he first saw Garrett Kane. The man watched from across the street, standing beside a black car costing more than most people earned in 5 years. Tall, built like violence, wearing sunglasses despite overcast sky. Josh's blood went cold. He knew without being told this was Marcus Morrison's enforcer, the man sent to ensure Josh never testified. Josh dropped his box and ran. He didn't know where, just that standing still meant death. He crashed through Union Square crowds, his lungs burning, his body weakened by months of insufficient food, protesting every step. Behind him, pursuit, steady, patient, inevitable. Josh ducked into subway, jumped the turnstile, ran through tunnels. He emerged in an unknown neighborhood, kept running until his legs gave out and he collapsed in an alley behind a Chinese restaurant, gasping for breath that wouldn't come. Garrett Kane appeared at the alley entrance. "Thought you'd run farther," Garrett said conversationally, pulling leather gloves over hands. "Usually they do, but you're weak. Months on street made you softer than before, which is saying something." Josh tried to stand. Couldn't. His legs were jelly, vision swimming. "Marcus wants this done quietly," Garrett continued, walking closer. "Unfortunate accident. Homeless man freezes to death. Tragic but common. Nobody asks questions." "Layla will know," Josh gasped. "Maybe, but she can't prove anything. By the time she figures it out, you'll be ash in an incinerator upstate." Garrett crouched down. "Any last words?" Josh's mind raced through options and found nothing. No escape, no help, no way out. Then someone appeared behind Garrett. A woman's voice, strong and clear. "Step away from him, now." Garrett turned, surprised, and Josh saw her, a black woman, maybe 40, with grey-streaked hair and eyes that had seen everything life could throw and survived. She pointed a taser at Garrett, hand steady. "This doesn't concern you," Garrett said. "Child, everything happening on my street concerns me," the woman replied. "Now step away before I light you up like Christmas." Garrett assessed her, the situation, whether she was actually willing. Whatever he saw made him step back. "This isn't over," Garrett said to Josh. "Marcus doesn't give up. He'll find you again." "Then I'll be here again," the woman said calmly. "And next time, I'll have more than just me. People on this street look after their own." Garrett smiled, cold and cruel. "This man isn't one of yours. He's nothing. Garbage who destroyed people for fun and profit. You're protecting trash." "Maybe," the woman agreed. "But garbage has more worth than folks who enjoy hurting people. Now get off my street before I call cops for harassment." Garrett left, but his exit felt more like a promise than retreat. The woman waited until he was gone before lowering the taser and helping Josh up. "Name's Destiny," she said. "You're that man from news, the one who tried to hurt Layla Morrison." Josh was so tired of that introduction. "Yes. Well, come on. You can't stay here. That man will come back with friends and my taser only holds so many charges." Destiny led him through alleys to a parking lot, where she lived in a 12-year-old Honda with her 2 children, a boy of 8 and a girl of 6, both wide-eyed and quiet in the way children become when life teaches them noise draws danger. "This is my home," Destiny said without shame. "Not much, but it's mine, and nobody can kick us out long as I keep the car running." Josh looked at this woman with nothing who'd just saved his life and felt something crack open inside his chest. "Why did you help me?" "Because someone helped me once when I had even less," Destiny replied, settling into the driver's seat while children squeezed into back. 3 years ago, I was living in a shelter with my babies. Husband had left, family disowned me for marrying him, and I had nothing. No job, home, hope. Then Layla Morrison showed up. Josh went very still. "She didn't announce herself," Destiny continued. "Didn't make it PR. Just showed up like a regular volunteer, started working, talking to people. She asked about my situation, listened without judging, then paid for my daughter's medical treatment. My baby had a heart condition, needed surgery we couldn't afford. Layla paid for all of it. Didn't ask for thanks, didn't make me grovel, just did it because it needed doing. Tears ran down Destiny's face, but her voice stayed steady. She saved my daughter's life. When I asked why, you know what she said? Because I remember what it's like when nobody sees you as human. I refuse to become that. So when I saw that man about to hurt you, I thought about Layla, how she saved us when she didn't have to. I figured if she gave you conditions instead of destroying you, maybe there's something worth saving. Maybe. Josh couldn't speak. Couldn't process that this woman and her children living in a car had risked herself to save him because Layla had once saved her daughter. I don't deserve your help. Probably not, Destiny agreed. But that's not for me to decide. What you deserve is between you and whatever God you believe in. What I can do is give you half my sandwich and a safe place to sit for a few hours. After that, you're on your own. She handed him half a peanut butter sandwich. Josh took it with shaking hands, this gift from someone with so little that sharing meant she'd go hungry. He ate that sandwich slowly, each bite tasting like shame and grace equally. That night, lying on cardboard beside Destiny's car, ankle monitor broadcasting location, Josh thought about the chain of connection that had saved his life. Layla had saved Destiny's daughter, Destiny had saved Josh, and Josh had done nothing but destroy people. His phone rang. Layla, again. Your monitor alerted us to the attack. Are you hurt? No. Someone named Destiny saved me. Silence. Then, very quietly, Destiny right. Her daughter Trinity is 11 now, doing well. Destiny wouldn't accept more help after that first time. Too proud, but she's good people. Why are you protecting me? Josh asked. Garrett Kane is hunting me because of your father, but I was the one who agreed to destroy you. I'm not innocent. No, Layla agreed. You're not. But my father turns people into weapons, finds their weaknesses, exploits their desperation, makes them do terrible things. You're responsible for your choices, Josh, but you're also a victim of his manipulation. Both things can be true simultaneously. That's too generous. It's not generosity, it's understanding how predators operate. My father is a predator. You were his tool. But tools can be repurposed. They can be turned into something constructive instead of destructive. That's what this year is about, reprogramming yourself from weapon to something else. What if I can't? Then you're broken, Layla said simply, and you live with that. But I don't believe people are permanently anything. I believe we're constantly choosing who we become, minute by minute. You spent years choosing cruelty. Now you're choosing survival. Eventually, maybe, you'll choose something better. She hung up, leaving Josh lying on cardboard beside a car housing a woman and 2 children, thinking about choices and weapons and whether broken things could ever be remade whole. The next morning, Destiny's car wouldn't start. Battery dead. Josh, who'd spent years driving luxury cars he didn't own, suddenly remembered his father teaching him basic car maintenance when he was 16. He spent his last $11 on jumper cables from a pawn shop, connected them to another car, got Destiny's Honda running. Destiny stared at him in shock. How did you know how to do that? My dad taught me, Josh said, surprised by the memory surfacing after years of burial. Before I decided I was too important for practical skills. Thank you, Destiny said, and Josh realized this was the first time in months someone had thanked him for something genuine instead of performative. Can I ask something? Josh said. Layla gave me conditions, said I have to face every woman I've hurt and listen to their stories. Did she ever tell you what happened to her? Why she's been hiding? Destiny's expression grew cautious. That's not my story to tell. But I'll say this. Layla Morrison survived something that would have destroyed most people. Instead of becoming hard and cruel, she became soft and strong. Those aren't opposites, you know. Soft and strong. Takes more courage to stay soft after the world tries to harden you. Josh thought about that as he walked away, heading to day labor, his body aching from a night on concrete, his mind replaying Destiny's words. Soft and strong. He'd spent his life believing strength meant hardness, meant not caring, meant crushing others before they crushed you. What if he'd been wrong about everything? Chapter 6. The choice that changes everything. 5 months into his year, Josh had learned survival's geography. Which restaurants threw out food at what times, which libraries had warmest bathrooms, which shelters had beds available on which nights, which day labor sites paid cash immediately versus making you wait. He'd also learned community existing among people society pretended not to see, how information spread through invisible networks, how people shared cigarettes, food, locations of warm places, how they protected each other from dangers the housed world never considered. One afternoon, working a moving job, his foreman Curtis pulled him aside. "You're working hard," Curtis said, "not complaining, not causing problems. You want steady work instead of day-to-day." Josh's heart leapt. Steady work meant steady income. Yes, absolutely. 3 days weekly, guaranteed. Moving furniture, light construction, whatever needs doing. $11 hourly, cash daily. Interested? Yes. Start Monday. Don't make me regret this. Josh worked that afternoon with energy he hadn't felt in months, his body moving on muscle memory while his mind calculated possibilities. 50 weekly from Layla's conditions plus 33 hours at $11 meant he could actually save money. Maybe find a room to rent. Maybe get off streets before winter became deadly. He was loading a truck, actually thinking about futures instead of just survival, when he heard screaming. Josh dropped his box and ran toward the sound. In an alley beside the job site, Garrett Kane held Destiny against a brick wall, his hand around her throat, while her children screamed from inside the Honda nearby. "Where is he?" Garrett was saying, voice calm despite violence. "Josh Vincent. I know you've been helping him. Tell me where he sleeps and I'll let you go." Destiny couldn't speak, couldn't breathe, was turning red from lack of oxygen. Josh should have hidden, should have stayed silent, should have protected himself. Instead, he heard himself shout, "Let her go. I'm right here." Garrett dropped Destiny and turned, his smile sharp as broken glass. "There you are, been looking. Marcus is getting impatient, sent me to clean this up before winter." "Just let them go," Josh said, moving into the alley, putting himself between Garrett and Destiny's children. "Your problem is with me, not them." "True," Garrett agreed. "But leverage is leverage. Maybe I hurt them. You don't run this time." He moved toward the Honda, toward Trinity, whose heart surgery Layla had paid for, toward the boy whose name Josh didn't even know, toward children with nothing to do with any of this. Josh tackled Garrett. He had no training, no strength after months of malnutrition, no chance whatsoever of winning. But he tackled Garrett anyway because children were involved, and somewhere in 5 months, Josh had developed capacity for putting others before himself that he hadn't possessed. Garrett hit him. Hard. Josh felt ribs crack, felt nose break, felt pain explode through his body, making his previous beating feel gentle. He tried to fight back and failed, tried to protect himself and couldn't, tried to do anything except absorb damage and managed nothing. But his screaming and fighting brought Curtis and other day laborers running. 6 men poured into that alley, and suddenly Garrett was outnumbered. He got in a few more brutal hits before running, leaving Josh bleeding on concrete, eager to drink him down. "Call an ambulance," Curtis was saying, but Destiny knelt beside Josh, her hands gentle on his face. "Don't," Josh managed. "Can't afford hospital, just help me up." "You saved my children," Destiny said, tears streaming. "Why?" "Because," Josh said, tasting blood, "someone had to, and I was there." They got him to a free clinic, asking no questions and accepting payment in whatever people could afford. The doctor, a woman in her 60s who'd clearly seen everything, examined Josh with clinical efficiency. 3 broken ribs, broken nose, severe bruising, possible concussion, she announced. "You need hospital care. Can't afford it. Then you heal here, slowly, and hope nothing internal is bleeding. She started wrapping ribs, movements gentle despite harsh words. What happened? Wrong place, wrong time, Josh lied. Bull, the doctor said calmly. I've run this clinic 20 years. I know violence when I see it. Someone was trying to kill you. Who? Josh said nothing. Fine, keep secrets. But whoever you are, whatever you did, you must have done something right to have people like Destiny willing to bring you here. The doctor finished wrapping. These will hurt for weeks, probably months. No heavy lifting, no running. Lots of rest and food, neither of which you'll get living on streets. You'll probably die out there this winter, but that's your choice. His ankle monitor had alerted Layla's security. Diana and 2 other guards arrived an hour later. Hospital? Diana asked, looking at Josh's face. No, Josh said. I can't afford it, and I won't break conditions. Conditions don't say you can't seek medical care. They say I live on $50 weekly. Hospital care costs thousands. So no. Diana studied him, then spoke into her phone. He's refusing hospital transport. Yes, understood. She hung up. Someone wants to see you. They drove Josh across Manhattan to Sterling Dynamics. He hadn't been inside since his public humiliation 7 months ago. Walking through those doors felt like walking into his own funeral. But they didn't take him to conference rooms or executive offices. Instead, Diana led him to a smaller, warmer space. A break room on ground floor, windows overlooking street, comfortable chairs and soft lighting. Layla was already there, standing by the window. She turned when Josh entered, and her face, usually so carefully controlled, showed genuine shock at his condition. Sit before you fall, she said, voice rough. Josh sat, ribs screaming. They were alone except for Diana standing outside. Garrett Kane attacked Destiny and her children, Josh said before Layla could speak. He was trying to use them as leverage. I had to stop him. You could have hidden, Layla said. Could have let my security handle it. Could have protected yourself. There wasn't time, Josh said simply. He was going to hurt children. I couldn't let that happen. Layla sat across from him, eyes searching his face. You took a beating that could have killed you to protect children who aren't your responsibility. They're Destiny's children, Josh said. She saved my life because you saved her daughter's life. I had to pay that forward. Pay it forward, Layla repeated softly. Is that what you think this was? I don't know what it was, Josh admitted. I just know I couldn't stand there and let him hurt them. For the first time in my life, I couldn't walk away from someone else's pain. I don't know if that makes me good or just less terrible, but it's something. It's different. Layla was quiet for a long time, studying him with intensity, making Josh want to look away but didn't. You have 7 months left, she said finally. Can you make it? I don't know, Josh said honestly. Garrett will try again. Your father won't stop until I'm dead, or he is, and I'm getting weaker every day. But I'll try. I'll keep trying because what else is there? There's quitting, Layla said. Giving up, taking the easy way. Plenty would understand. Would you understand? Josh asked. No, Layla said immediately. I wouldn't, because I believe you're capable of more than you've ever allowed yourself to be. These past 5 months, you've started becoming someone different, someone better. Don't stop now. She stood to leave, then paused. My security will be more visible. We'll keep Garrett away from you and anyone connected to you. But Josh, the fact that you have people connected to you now, people who'd risk themselves to help you, that's growth. Don't waste it. She left, and Josh sat in that break room, his body broken but his mind clearer than it had been in months. He thought about Destiny, about her children, about Curtis and the day laborers who'd come running, about Dorothy and Raymond and the doctor at the free clinic. He'd spent his entire life believing he was important, that his comfort and success mattered more than other people's existence. He'd been wrong about everything. Chapter 7. The Father's Revenge. 8 months into his year, early spring was trying to shoulder aside winter's grip. Josh's ribs had healed mostly. He walked with a slight limp from an ankle twisted on ice. His hands were permanently scarred from labor. His face bore marks of violence that would never fully fade. The man looking back from bathroom mirrors was unrecognizable from the one who'd stood in a penthouse a lifetime ago. But something else had changed. Josh had community now. Curtis gave him steady work and actual advice. Destiny checked on him weekly, made sure he was eating. Dorothy saved newspaper sections with job listings circled. Raymond always had a bed available when Josh needed one most. People cared whether he lived or died. It was extraordinary. He was working a moving job, carrying boxes up brownstone stairs, when his phone rang. The burner only a few people had the number for. Josh answered, expecting Layla's security with another Garrett Kane warning. Instead, he heard Elena Sterling's voice tight with fear. "Hello, Josh. I need you to listen carefully. I've been taken." Josh's blood turned to ice. "What?" "Marcus Morrison has me. He says you're going to call Layla and deliver a message. If you try to warn security, he'll kill me. Understand?" "Where are you?" "The old Morrison estate in Westchester, the one Marcus owned before arrest. He says Layla needs to come alone. Bring papers transferring control of Sterling Dynamics and the Morrison fortune. If she brings police or security, I die. If she doesn't come within 2 hours, I die. If she refuses to sign, I die. Understand?" "I understand. Put Marcus on." Pause, shuffling. Then Marcus Morrison's voice, smooth as poisoned honey. "Hello, Josh. Surprised you're still alive. Garrett assured me you'd be dead by now, but you're surprisingly resilient for someone fundamentally weak. Let Elena go. Your problem is with Layla, not her." "Elena Sterling encouraged my daughter to testify against me," Marcus said, voice going cold. "She convinced Layla that destroying her own father was noble. She's as guilty as Layla. More, perhaps, because she was an outsider who poisoned my daughter's mind. What do you want? I already said. Layla comes alone, signs documents giving me back what's mine, then we'll see if I'm feeling merciful." Marcus paused. "You're wondering if you should warn Layla's security, if you should try being a hero. Don't. I have explosives rigged throughout this estate. One signal from me, and this entire building becomes rubble with Elena inside. The only way she survives is if Layla follows instructions exactly. She'll know it's a trap." "Of course," Marcus agreed. "She's my daughter. She inherited my intelligence, if not my principles. But she'll come anyway because that's her weakness. She cares about people. She believes human lives matter more than power or money. It's pathetic. And it'll get her killed." The line went dead. Josh stood frozen in that brownstone stairwell, boxes scattered around him, his mind trying to process. Marcus had Eleanor, was using her as bait, expected Josh to deliver the message bringing Layla to certain death. If Josh called Layla and told her what Marcus demanded, she'd walk into a trap. If he warned her security first, Marcus might kill Elena. If he did nothing, both women would die. There were no good options, no clever solutions, no way out that didn't involve someone dying. Josh thought about the past 8 months, about Destiny saving his life because Layla had saved her daughter, about how Layla had given him conditions instead of prison, had believed he was capable of change even when he didn't believe it himself. He thought about how every choice mattered, how you became the sum of your decisions, how monsters were made one selfish act at a time, and heroes were made one sacrifice at a time. He called Layla. She answered immediately. "Josh, what's wrong?" "Your father has Elena," Josh said. "He's holding her at the old Morrison estate. He wants you to come alone with documents signing over Sterling Dynamics and the Morrison fortune. If you bring police or security, he'll kill her. If you don't come within 2 hours, he'll kill her. If you refuse to sign, he'll kill her." Silence. Josh could hear Layla breathing, could imagine her mind working through scenarios. "He's going to kill you," Josh added quietly. "That's the real plan. Elena is bait. He wants you dead because that's the only way he regains control. The documents are theater. He'll kill you both regardless." "I know," Layla said, voice steady despite impossibility. "But if I don't go, Elena dies for certain. This way, there's a chance." "There's no chance," Josh said desperately. "This is your father. You know what he's capable of." "I do," Layla agreed, "which is why I need you to do something. I need you to go to the estate before me. Your ankle monitor broadcasts location. My security can follow, but you need to get inside, find Elena, get her out before I arrive. Your father will kill me the second he sees me." "Maybe," Layla said. "Or maybe he'll keep you alive because you're useful. He's arrogant enough to believe he can use you again. Either way, you're the only person who can get inside without triggering whatever trap he's set for me." "This is insane." "It's the only option we have," Layla replied. "Josh, I know I have no right to ask this. You don't owe me anything. But Elena has been protecting me for 8 years. She's the reason I survived my father's initial revenge attempts. She's the reason I'm alive to give you these conditions. If there's any chance to save her, I have to take it. We have to take it." Josh thought about Destiny risking herself, about Curtis and the day laborers running to help when Garrett attacked, about all the small acts of courage from people with nothing. "Tell me how to get there," he said. Layla gave him directions, told him about a service entrance that might be unwatched, told him Eleanor would likely be held in the main study where Marcus used to conduct business. "Your security will follow my ankle monitor?" "They already are," Layla said. "But they won't move in until you signal Elena is safe. If they breach too early, Marcus might trigger explosives." "And if I die?" "Then you die a better person than you lived most of your life," Layla said softly. "That's not nothing, Josh. That's everything." She hung up. Josh stood in that stairwell, terrified and resolved equally, knowing he was about to walk into a situation where he'd probably die, but also knowing that walking away would mean he'd survived 8 months, but learned nothing. He told Curtis he had an emergency, took subway to Grand Central, caught a train to Westchester. The Morrison estate was massive, hidden behind walls and gates, the kind of place existing to intimidate. Josh found the service entrance Layla had mentioned, a maintenance door half hidden by overgrown hedges. Unlocked. Not careless. Intentional. Marcus was expecting this, allowing Josh to enter because it served whatever larger plan was unfolding. Inside, the estate was beautiful and cold, all marble and ancient wood, and the smell of old money. Josh moved through hallways feeling familiar, like places from nightmares where you're lost, but the architecture knows you. He found the study, found Elena Sterling bound to a chair, mouth taped, eyes wide with fear and warning. He also found Garrett Kane standing behind her, holding a gun. "Hello, Josh," Garrett said pleasantly. "We've been waiting for you." Chapter 8. The Daughter's Stand. Josh froze in the doorway, his mind trying to calculate escapes that didn't exist. Garrett had a gun pointed at Elena Sterling's head. Marcus Morrison sat in a leather chair by the fireplace, looking like a king holding court in the castle he'd lost and was determined to reclaim. "Come in," Marcus said, voice carrying that same poisoned honey quality. "We're all friends here." "Let her go," Josh said, taking a careful step in. "Your problem is with Layla, not Elena." "My problem is with everyone who destroyed my life," Marcus corrected. "My daughter, my supposed friends, the entire system that believed lies of a manipulative girl over a man who built an empire. But yes, Layla is the primary target. Elena is simply collateral and excellent bait." Josh moved slowly toward Elena, watching Garrett's trigger finger. 8 months on streets had made him tougher in some ways, but strength requires nutrition and rest, neither of which Josh had sufficiently. "You're wondering if you can disarm Garrett," Marcus observed. "If you can somehow save Elena and escape before I detonate explosives throughout this estate. The answer is no. But I admire the thought process. You've changed quite a bit from the desperate man I recruited 8 months ago." "You used me," Josh said, still moving incrementally closer. "Set me up to fail so you'd have someone to testify against if your plan went wrong." "True," Marcus agreed easily. "You were always expendable, but you were also useful right up until you weren't. The problem with tools is they sometimes develop consciousness and start making their own decisions. That's when they become dangerous." Josh reached Elena's chair. Her eyes were frantic, trying to communicate something Josh couldn't interpret. He reached for the tape over her mouth. "I wouldn't," Garrett said casually, pressing the gun harder against Elena's skull. "Marcus wants her quiet." "Why?" Josh asked, hand hovering. "If you're going to kill us all anyway, what does it matter?" "Because," a new voice said from the doorway, "my father is theatrical. He wants me to see Elena suffering before he kills her. He wants me to feel responsible. He wants my last moments alive filled with guilt." Layla stood in the doorway, wearing dark clothing, her face calm despite walking into the trap they'd all known was waiting. Behind her, the hallway was empty. She'd come alone as Marcus demanded. Marcus smiled, genuine pleasure lighting his cold eyes. "Hello, daughter. I've waited 8 years for this conversation." "Hello, father," Layla replied, stepping in. "I've been waiting too, though I'd hoped you'd die in prison and save us all this trouble." "Still disrespectful," Marcus said. "Still certain you made the right choice when you testified against me. Do you ever wonder what our lives would be like if you'd simply stayed loyal? If you'd understood family comes before morality?" "Every day," Layla said, moving farther in, drawing Marcus's attention from Josh and Elena. "Every single day, I wonder what my life would have been if I'd let you keep destroying people. And every day I'm grateful I had courage to stop you." "Courage," Marcus repeated, tasting the word like poison. "You call betraying your father courage. I call it the worst kind of treachery. I raised you, provided for you, taught you everything I knew, and you repaid me by destroying my life." "You destroyed your own life," Layla said, voice steady. "I just made sure you couldn't destroy anyone else's. There's a difference." Marcus stood, moving toward Layla with controlled violence. Josh saw his chance. While Marcus was focused on his daughter, while Garrett's attention was divided, Josh grabbed Elena's chair and yanked it backward, pulling her away from the gun. Garrett spun, but Josh was already moving, 8 months of survival instincts making him faster than he had any right to be. He tackled Garrett, his broken body screaming protest, ribs sending white-hot pain through his chest. They hit the floor hard, the gun skidding across marble. Marcus turned at the commotion, reaching for something in his jacket. The detonator, Josh realized with horror, the trigger that would bring this entire estate down. But Layla was faster. She'd anticipated this, had probably planned for it, had known her father's vanity would make him monologue instead of acting immediately. She launched herself at Marcus, grabbing his wrist before he could press the button, her small frame leveraging angles and momentum speaking of serious training. Father and daughter fought in that study, savage and silent, while Josh struggled with Garrett for control of the gun. Elena, still bound to the chair, screamed through taped mouth, her chair tipping as she tried to move. Josh's weakened body was losing to Garrett's trained violence. He felt his grip slipping, felt the gun turning toward him, felt inevitability of death approaching with mechanical precision. Then the windows exploded inward as Layla's security team breached, and suddenly the study was full of people in tactical gear moving with military precision. They'd been waiting for Layla's signal, for confirmation Elena was safe enough to risk action. Garrett was yanked off Josh and subdued. Marcus was torn away from Layla, his hand still clutching the detonator he'd never managed to activate. Security swarmed, weapons drawn, checking for threats. Layla ran to Elena, gently removing tape, working on ropes binding her wrists. "Are you hurt?" Layla asked, hands shaking now that immediate danger had passed. "Bruises, nothing serious," Elena managed, voice rough. "You shouldn't have come. He was going to kill you." "He was going to kill you if I didn't," Layla replied. "That's not a choice I can live with." Josh lay on the floor, ribs screaming, body a constellation of fresh bruises on old ones, watching this scene with strange detachment. He'd survived. Somehow, impossibly, he'd survived. Diana helped him sit up. "Can you walk?" "I don't know," Josh admitted. "Maybe." They helped him stand, legs unsteady, vision swimming. Across the room, Marcus Morrison was being restrained by 4 security personnel, his face a mask of pure hatred directed at Layla. "This isn't over," Marcus said, voice carrying despite chaos. "I'll get out again. I'll come for you again. You can't hide from me forever." "I'm not hiding," Layla said quietly, standing now facing her father with decades of pain and anger and exhausted love. "I'm living, building things instead of destroying them, helping people instead of crushing them, everything you never understood how to do." "You're weak," Marcus spat. "Soft, emotional, everything a Morrison should never be." "No," Layla said, "I'm strong. Stronger than you because I survived you and stayed human. That's real strength, father, not the kind that breaks people, the kind that builds them up even when they don't deserve it." Her eyes flicked to Josh, still being supported by Diana. "Even him, even someone who tried to destroy me. I gave him the chance to become something better. That's power you never understood, the power to transform instead of just dominate." Marcus opened his mouth to respond, but security was already removing him, his threats fading as they took him away. This time the charges would be serious enough that Marcus wouldn't see freedom again for decades, if ever. Elena was being checked by paramedics who'd arrived. She waved away concerns, more focused on Layla than her own injuries. "You took a terrible risk," Eleanor said. "So did you," Layla replied. "Every day for 8 years you've risked yourself to protect me. It was my turn." They embraced, and Josh saw years of love and loyalty and chosen family. Elena Sterling had been more of a parent to Layla than Marcus ever was. Layla looked up, met Josh's eyes across the room. She walked over, leaving Elena with Victor Sterling, who'd just arrived, his face pale with fear of almost losing his wife. "You came," Layla said to Josh. "You walked into a trap knowing you'd probably die. Why?" "Because," Josh said, voice rough with exhaustion and pain, "for the first time in my life, someone else's survival mattered more than mine. I don't know when that changed, somewhere in the past 8 months. But it did, and I couldn't live with myself if I'd let Eleanor die to save myself." Layla studied him for a long moment, something unreadable in her expression. "Your ribs are broken again, aren't they?" "Probably." "Hospital this time, no arguments. You've earned actual medical care." She turned to Diana. "Make sure he gets treatment. Everything he needs." "That's not part of the conditions," Josh protested weakly. "The conditions," Layla said softly, "don't account for you risking your life to save my family. This is different. This is earned." She walked away to deal with police and security and aftermath. Josh was loaded into an ambulance, Diana riding with him, and as they pulled away from the Morrison estate, Josh looked back at that beautiful cold house where terrible things had happened, and somehow, impossibly, he'd helped stop them from getting worse. At the hospital, doctors confirmed 3 more broken ribs, severe bruising and exhaustion so profound they wanted to keep him for observation. Josh agreed because he was too tired to argue, and because for the first time in 8 months, he wasn't worried about losing his place at a shelter or missing day labor work. He slept for 16 hours straight, dreamless and deep, the sleep of someone whose body had been running on emergency reserves so long it had forgotten what actual rest felt like. When he woke, Layla was sitting beside his hospital bed reading. She looked up when she heard him stirring. "How do you feel?" "Like I got hit by a truck," Josh said honestly. "How's Elena?" "Shaken, but okay, home with Victor. My father is facing enough charges that he won't see freedom again, ever. It's over, Josh. His revenge, his plans, all of it, finished. Because I walked into his trap." "Because you made a choice," Layla corrected. "You could have warned my security immediately, could have let professionals handle it, but you knew my father was monitoring communications, knew any early warning might get Elena killed, so you went in yourself, drew attention, gave me the opening I needed to move with backup. You saved her life, Josh. However much you want to diminish it, that's what happened." Josh absorbed this, trying to reconcile the man who'd walked into the Morrison estate with the man who'd stood in a penthouse 8 months ago, treating people like props. "I have 4 months left on my conditions," he said. "What happens now?" "Now you heal," Layla said. "Then you finish what you started, because you're not done yet, Josh. You've changed, yes, but change has to be maintained, reinforced, proved over time, 4 more months of learning what it means to survive with nothing, and then condition 3, facing every woman you've hurt. Her voice softened. That's going to be harder than everything you've done so far. Facing their pain, listening to their stories, not being allowed to defend yourself, just listening, absorbing, understanding what your actions cost people. I know, Josh said quietly. I've been dreading it. Good, Layla said, not unkindly. You should dread it. It's going to break something in you that needs breaking. And maybe, when you're done, you'll be ready to build something new from the pieces. She stood to leave, then paused at the door. For what it's worth, she said, I'm proud of you, for the choice you made today. That's who you're becoming, Josh. Someone who makes hard choices for the right reasons. Don't lose that. She left, and Josh lay in that hospital bed, his body broken but healing, thinking about choices and change, and whether broken things could ever truly be whole, or if they were always just pieces held together by the decision to keep trying. Chapter 9. The Weight of Truth. 2 weeks after the Morrison estate, Josh was released with instructions to take it easy for a month. His ribs were wrapped, his body a gallery of fading bruises, and he moved like an old man despite being in his 30s. He returned to the streets, to shelters and day labor sites and the community that had become his life. Curtis held his job open. Dorothy saved library sections. Destiny checked on him daily. The people populating society's edges had claimed Josh as their own. But now it was time for condition 3. Time to face the women he'd hurt. Layla arranged everything with precision. Private rooms for meetings, recordings of every conversation, professional mediators present but silent unless violence threatened, and a list of names making Josh's stomach turn. First was Sienna Hartwell. They met in a neutral office, afternoon light streaming through windows overlooking a park where people walked dogs and pushed strollers and lived lives untouched by the wreckage Josh and Sienna had created. Sienna sat across from him, carefully made up but unable to hide weight she'd lost, shadows under eyes, damage their 4-year relationship had inflicted. "Thank you for coming," Josh said quietly. "I didn't come for you," Sienna replied, voice sharp. "I came because Layla Morrison asked me to, because she explained this was part of your conditions, and because she said it might help me heal to say everything I've never been able to say to your face." Josh nodded. "I'm here to listen, for as long as you need." Sienna pulled out a thick folder. "I wrote it all down. 4 years, every lie you told, every moment I believed you, every time I defended you to my family who said you seemed wrong somehow, every dream I built around a future with you that never existed." She opened the folder. Josh saw pages covered in handwriting, neat at first, then increasingly erratic as emotions had clearly overwhelmed precision. "We met at a charity gala," Sienna began, voice steady despite tears forming. "You were charming, attentive, interested in my non-profit work. You said you admired people who dedicated their lives to helping others. You said you wanted to be better, to contribute more, to build something meaningful with someone who shared your values." She laughed, bitter and broken. "I believed every word. Why wouldn't I? You were good at lying, Josh. So good that 4 years passed before I discovered I was living in an illusion you'd created." Josh wanted to explain about desperation, debt, the way maintaining his image required more money than he earned. But the conditions were clear. He didn't get to defend himself. He only got to listen. Sienna continued, reading from her pages, detailing moments Josh had forgotten or dismissed, but that she'd cherished. Birthdays missed because he was with Layla. Holidays he'd invented business trips to explain absence. The proposal he'd made 3 years in, giving her a ring, and promises he'd never intended to keep. "I told my mother we were getting married," Sienna said, tears flowing freely. She was so happy. She'd lost my father years ago, and seeing me find love meant everything. She started planning the wedding, asking about dates and venues and all the details you kept putting off with excuses about work being crazy. She looked up, met Josh's eyes. "My mother died 6 months ago, heart attack, sudden. She died believing I was going to marry you, that I'd found happiness, and I can never tell her the truth. Can never explain my fiancée was a fraud simultaneously engaged to another woman. She died with a lie I didn't even know I was telling. Josh felt something crack open in his chest, pain having nothing to do with broken ribs and everything to do with understanding, truly understanding, the cascade of damage his choices had inflicted on people whose only crime was trusting him. "I'm sorry," he whispered, words pathetically inadequate. "Don't," Sienna said sharply. "Don't apologize. Don't try to make this better. You don't get to feel better, Josh. You get to sit there and absorb what you did. That's your punishment. That's your condition." She continued reading, detailing 2 more hours of memories and pain and dreams destroyed. Josh listened to every word, forcing himself to stay present, to not retreat into defensive mechanisms he'd spent his life building. The recording captured everything: his face, her words, the way his hands shook when she described introducing him to her dying mother. "I don't forgive you," Sienna said finally, closing her folder. "I'll never forgive you. But I hope this helps someone. I hope other women hear this and recognize signs of being manipulated before years of their lives are stolen." She stood, gathered her things, walked toward the door, then stopped and looked back. "Layla Morrison is a better person than I am," Sienna said. "She gave you conditions instead of destroying you. If it were me, I'd have burned your life to the ground and laughed. Remember that. Remember how lucky you are that it was her you tried to destroy instead of someone like me." She left. The mediator gave Josh a moment before bringing in the next person, Melissa Chen. She'd been Josh's secretary before Layla, back when he was just a rising executive who hadn't yet gotten caught stealing. She was younger than Josh, nervous, hands twisting a tissue into shreds. "I didn't think I'd actually do this," Melissa said, voice barely above a whisper. "When Layla reached out, I almost said no. I told myself I'd moved on, but my therapist said I should come, that I needed to say these things out loud to the person who hurt me." "I'm here," Josh said quietly. "I'm listening." Melissa took a shaking breath. "You hired me when I was 23, fresh out of college, so excited to work at Sterling Dynamics. It was my dream job. I wanted to prove myself, to climb the ladder, to become someone important. And for the first few months, it was perfect. You were professional, respectful, treated me like a valuable team member." She paused, tears already falling. "Then it changed. You started making comments about my appearance, about my clothes, about how I should dress more professionally, which translated to wearing tighter skirts and lower-cut blouses. You started touching my shoulder when you didn't need to, standing too close, finding excuses to work late when no one else was around." Josh felt sick. He remembered this, remembered Melissa, remembered his behavior, remembered dismissing her discomfort as oversensitivity. "I told HR," Melissa continued. "I documented everything, but you were important and I was nobody. HR talked to you, you apologized, promised it wouldn't happen again, and for a week you were professional. Then it started again. Worse than before." She looked down at her shredded tissue. "I quit after 8 months. My dream job, my career path, everything I'd worked for. I quit because coming to work meant enduring your harassment every single day. And when I left, you told people I couldn't handle the pressure, that I wasn't cut out for corporate life. You damaged my reputation so thoroughly that I couldn't get another job at that level for 2 years." Josh opened his mouth, wanting to say he didn't remember it being that bad. But the conditions were clear, and more importantly, Melissa's pain was real whether he remembered causing it or not. "I'm in therapy," Melissa said. 3 years later, I'm still in therapy dealing with anxiety and trust issues you created. I can't handle male bosses. I can't work late because I panic when alone with men in professional settings. You didn't just take my job, Josh. You took my ability to feel safe in professional environments." She stood abruptly. "That's all I have to say. I don't want your apology. I just want you to understand what you did. Can you give me that?" "Yes," Josh said, voice rough. "I heard you. I understand." Melissa left. The mediator handed Josh water. "Do you need a break?" "No," Josh said. "How many more?" 7 more today," 10 more scheduled over the next 2 weeks, plus anyone else who contacts Ms. Morrison requesting to participate. Josh closed his eyes. This was only the beginning. Over the next 3 weeks, Josh sat in that room and listened to 17 women detail how his actions had damaged their lives. Some stories were as severe as Melissa's. Others were smaller but no less meaningful. The intern he'd humiliated in front of peers, the colleague whose ideas he'd stolen, the woman at a conference he'd led on professionally then ghosted, the friend of Sienna's who'd tried to warn her and been cut out of her life. Every story was unique. Every woman had suffered differently, but the common thread was Josh's casual cruelty, his certainty that other people's feelings mattered less than his comfort, success, image. The recordings were edited into a documentary that would be released publicly. Josh would be exposed not through sensational headlines, but through quiet, devastating testimonies of people he'd hurt. The final session was with someone Josh hadn't expected, Dorothy from the library. "You hurt me too," Dorothy said when she sat down. "Not directly, but when you tried to destroy Layla Morrison, you were trying to destroy the woman who saved my granddaughter's job at Sterling Dynamics. Your actions, if they'd succeeded, would have hurt thousands who depend on the changes Layla made. That's a different kind of violence, but it's violence nonetheless." Josh hadn't considered this angle. Hadn't thought about all the people who would have been collateral damage if he'd successfully destroyed Layla's reputation. "I accepted you at the library," Dorothy continued, "shared my space, watched you struggle and survive. I saw you changing. That's why I'm here, to tell you that change doesn't erase damage. You can become a better person and still have to live with what you did as a worse one. Both things exist simultaneously. That's the burden of genuine transformation." She stood to leave, then added, "But I also want you to know something. I believe you've changed. I believe these past 9 months broke something in you that needed breaking. And I believe you have capacity to spend the rest of your life building instead of destroying. Whether you do that or not is your choice. Every day, every moment, choose well, Josh Vincent." When Dorothy left, the mediator told Josh he was done. All 17 sessions complete, all recordings captured, all stories told. Josh sat alone in that room, feeling like he'd been hollowed out and filled with other people's pain. Layla appeared in the doorway. "How do you feel?" "Destroyed," Josh said honestly. "Like I should never have been allowed to interact with other humans." "Good," Layla said, not unkindly. "That's appropriate. You hurt people, Josh. Not accidentally, through deliberate choices made over and over. Facing that isn't supposed to feel good. It's supposed to break you." "It did," Josh said. "I'm broken." "No," Layla corrected. "You're finally cracked open enough to let something different grow. There's a difference." She sat across from him. "You have 3 weeks left on your conditions. 3 weeks and your year is complete. What happens after is up to you." "What do you mean?" "I mean you get to choose what kind of person you become next," Layla said. "You've survived poverty, protected people at cost to yourself, listened to truth about your impact. You have the components of transformation, but transformation only works if you continue choosing it after conditions end. So what do you choose?" Josh thought about Sienna's mother dying with lies, about Melissa's therapy, about the 17 women whose lives he'd damaged, about destiny saving his life because Layla had saved her daughters, about Curtis giving him work, about Dorothy sharing her library space. "I want to help people," Josh said slowly. "I want to spend the rest of my life balancing scales, even though I know they'll never be balanced. I want to become someone those 17 women could point to and say, that's what real change looks like, even if they never forgive me. Even if I never forgive myself." Layla studied him for a long moment. "Then I have something for you," she said, pulling an envelope from her bag. "Open it after your year is complete, not before. But know this, it's an opportunity, not a reward. What you do with it determines whether this past year meant something or was just performance." She left him with the envelope, and Josh sat alone in that room where 17 women had shared their pain, holding a future he couldn't yet see, hoping he'd proven himself worthy of whatever chance Layla was offering. 3 weeks, 3 more weeks of surviving on streets, of day labor and shelters and cold nights. 3 weeks until his conditions were complete and he'd face the hardest test, choosing who to become without conditions forcing the choice. Chapter 10. The Woman Who Rewrote Destiny. The Morrison Foundation Gala was everything Josh had been told to expect and nothing he could have prepared for. Crystal chandeliers cast prismatic light across a ballroom filled with people who shaped policy and markets with casual conversations. Women in gowns costing more than cars. Men in tailored suits discussing deals worth millions. The air itself seemed expensive. Josh stood near the entrance wearing a simple suit, the best he could afford from saved earnings, nowhere near good enough for this environment. People's eyes slid past him like he was furniture. After a year of being invisible on streets, being invisible in a ballroom felt familiar. But then he saw her. Layla moved through the crowd like she'd been born to this, which she had. Her gown was midnight blue, elegant without ostentation. Hair styled but natural, minimal jewelry catching light without demanding it. She looked powerful and kind simultaneously, which Josh now understood was the rarest combination. Around her were faces Josh recognized from his year on streets. Destiny was there with her children, Trinity wearing a dress making her shine with joy. Dorothy was there with her granddaughter, Curtis with his wife, Raymond from the shelter, the doctor from the free clinic, even Melissa and several other women Josh had faced during Condition 3. This wasn't just a gala, it was a gathering of everyone connected to Josh's transformation. Victor and Elena Sterling stood near the stage, Elena fully recovered, her arm linked with Victor's in partnership that made Josh ache for something he'd never understood how to build. The lights dimmed. Layla took the stage, and the room went silent. "Thank you for being here tonight," Layla began, voice carrying effortlessly. "We're gathered to celebrate Hope Haven Women's Network expansion, 30 new shelters opening across the country, providing safe housing, job training, comprehensive support to women escaping poverty, abuse, hopelessness." Applause filled the room. Josh clapped along, watching Layla command this space with quiet authority. "But I want to talk about something more complicated than celebration," Layla continued, and the room grew quiet. "I want to talk about redemption, about whether people can truly change, about what it costs and what it's worth." She scanned the crowd, eyes finding Josh. His stomach dropped. "1 year ago, a man named Josh Vincent tried to destroy me," Layla said, voice steady. "He was sent by my father, who'd just been released from prison and wanted revenge for my testimony that sent him there. Josh was living a double life, engaged to 2 women simultaneously, stealing from his employer, drowning in debt. My father offered him money, power, protection. All Josh had to do was seduce me, gain my trust, destroy my reputation publicly." The crowd murmured uncomfortably. Josh felt hundreds of eyes turned toward him. "Josh accepted that offer," Layla continued. "He played his role perfectly for 6 months, and I let him because I knew what he was doing from day one. I documented everything. When the moment was right, I exposed him, destroyed his career, his relationships, his entire constructed life." She paused. "Then I gave him 3 conditions. First, live on the streets for 1 year with $50 weekly, the same amount women in my shelters receive. Experience the poverty he'd mocked. Second, testify against my father, helping ensure he'd never hurt anyone again. Third, face every woman he'd hurt, listen to their stories, record every conversation, release them publicly." Layla's voice softened. "Josh Vincent, would you come up here, please?" Josh's legs didn't want to move. Every instinct screamed to run. But he'd spent a year learning comfort mattered less than courage, so he walked toward the stage. When he reached Layla, she turned to face him, and the crowd could see them both clearly, the powerful woman who'd survived everything, and the broken man she'd deliberately shattered, then carefully rebuilt. "This man manipulated me," Layla said, addressing the crowd but looking at Josh. "He betrayed me. He participated in conspiracy designed to destroy everything I've built. If he'd succeeded, my father would have regained control of the Morrison fortune. Thousands would have suffered. The women in this room tonight, Destiny, Dorothy, Melissa, so many others, would have lost the support systems that saved their lives. The crowd was completely silent. But Josh made choices, Layla continued. When my father's enforcer came to kill him, Josh protected Destiny and her children instead of hiding. When my father kidnapped Elena Sterling, Josh walked into a trap knowing he'd probably die because saving her life mattered more than his own. When given opportunity to defend himself against the women he'd hurt, he stayed silent and listened instead. She turned fully to Josh. I can't forgive you. Not yet. Maybe not ever. What you did doesn't disappear because you spent a year suffering. Those women you hurt, they carry that damage forever. Their forgiveness isn't mine to give. Josh nodded, accepting this. But I believe in transformation through action, Layla said. Not words, not apologies. Through years of different choices and proving change is genuine. You've done the work. Now comes the hardest part, continuing when no one's forcing you. She handed him the envelope. Open it. Josh's hands shook. Inside was a letter on Hope Haven letterhead. A job offer. Case manager at their largest women's shelter. Entry level. Low pay. Difficult, emotionally exhausting work helping women escape situations Josh had spent a year experiencing. This isn't forgiveness, Layla said clearly. This is opportunity to keep proving you've changed. To spend every day helping women rebuild instead of destroying them. To become someone those 17 women could eventually point to and say, that's what real change looks like. Take it or leave it. Josh looked at the letter, at the job paying barely enough to live on, requiring him to face daily reminders of harm he'd caused, offering no glory or redemption or easy resolution. I'll take it, he said, voice breaking. Not for you, for me. Because I need to spend the rest of my life becoming someone worthy of the chances I've been given. Layla nodded once. Then report Monday morning. Don't be late. She walked off the stage, leaving Josh standing there holding his future. The crowd didn't applaud, they simply watched, processing this complicated story that didn't fit neatly into categories of villain or hero. Josh descended from the stage. People parted to let him through. But as he passed, Destiny caught his arm. You did good, she said quietly. Keep doing good. Dorothy squeezed his shoulder. Curtis nodded respect. One by one, people who'd witnessed his transformation acknowledged him, not with forgiveness, but with recognition that he was trying. Even Melissa, standing near the exit, met his eyes. She didn't smile, didn't speak, but she didn't look away, and that small acknowledgement felt more valuable than any praise. Josh left the gala and walked through Manhattan streets that had been his home for a year. The city looked different now, not because it had changed, but because he had. 6 months later, a new woman arrived at Hope Haven, beaten, terrified, convinced she had nowhere to go and no one who'd help. Josh sat with her in the intake room, patient and kind. You're safe here, Josh said gently. We're going to help you rebuild, one day at a time. You're stronger than you know. The woman cried, and Josh handed her tissues, made her tea, sat with her until she was ready to talk. He didn't see Layla watching from the hallway. She'd come to check shelter operations but stopped when she saw Josh working with the new arrival. She watched him be the man she'd hoped he could become, patient, kind, genuinely committed to helping. Victor appeared beside her. Are you ever going to tell him? Tell him what? Layla asked, still watching Josh. That you've forgiven him. Layla was quiet for a long moment. Forgiveness isn't a moment, Victor. It's not something I announce or withhold. It's something that grows quietly over years of watching someone prove their change is real. Maybe I'm halfway there. Maybe I'll never fully arrive. But that's okay. Some transformations don't have neat endings. You gave him his life back. No, Layla corrected. I gave him tools to build a new life. What he's building, that's all him. That's what makes it matter. She turned to leave. But at the door she paused, looking back one more time at the man who'd tried to destroy her and had instead destroyed himself and rebuilt something better. Later that evening, alone in her office, Layla opened her desk drawer. Inside was a photograph from her early days with Josh, before she'd exposed him. Both smiling, both lying, both pretending to be people they weren't. She looked at it for a long moment. Then she took a lighter from her desk and held the flame to the corner of the photograph. She watched it burn slowly, the edges curling, the image disappearing into ash. She didn't need the photograph anymore, didn't need the reminder of who Josh had been or who she'd been forced to become to stop him. That chapter was over, not forgiven, not forgotten, simply complete. What remained was the future, the one Josh was building through daily choices to be better, and the one she was building by believing transformation was possible, even when it cost everything. The photograph turned to ash in her hands. Layla brushed the remains into the trash, washed her hands, and returned to the work of building something better than revenge. And in a shelter across the city, Josh Vincent sat with a broken woman and offered her the same thing Layla had offered him, not salvation, not absolution, but the radical possibility that tomorrow could be different from today if you were willing to do the hard work of becoming someone new. That was redemption, not the kind that erased the past, the kind that transformed the future, one impossible choice at a time.